Perryn, hi, episode 167, buddy, and welcome back.
Hey, thanks, Dean. Love to be back.
Okay. Thanks again for being here. I really appreciate it. Okay, so tell folks a little bit about you, and then I have 3 different hypothetical scenarios to walk us through.
Ooh, fun. So I'm a fractional CMO with Alt CMO. We're a team of construction-focused fractional CMOs. Been doing construction marketing for almost 2 decades.
All right. So here's my first scenario. Okay, it's day one. Your client, is actually in your town, and so you're on site for day one of your new engagement. Okay. As you walk in on day one to start off being the fractional CMO for some period of time, what's the dream scenario for what you might walk into, and what's the nightmare scenario for what you're going to walk into?
Dream scenario is they kind of got this year figured out. They're really looking more at the long term.
Okay.
One of my favorite clients told me that last year I started work with him. He's like, "Look, I'm Perryn. I'm good on 2024. I need your help for 2025 to 2030." Mm-hmm. And just they understand marketing is a little bit more of a long term investment, and really trying to get to that next level. The company's profitable. We're not worried about paychecks for making payroll next week. That would be more the nightmare scenarios when it's just we need money now, and money now is expensive to go get. So those are really the nightmares. But yeah, they've got a lot of things going well. Operations is running smooth. They're profitable. They have a couple of people in marketing, but they just need help getting to that next level. That's really what I really love doing, is kind of building out those processes, formalizing a few things, but also just really how do we take it from good to great?
Okay, so then let's stick with that sort of on-site day one kind of thing. You get your meeting, 15 minutes, whatever, with the CEO. And the CEO, like most CEOs, especially the good ones, it's very factual, right? It's lay it out. There's no point hiding stuff. So this one, the CEO, very self-aware, and says, "Perryn, look, man, I understand that you deal with a lot more CEOs than I'm ever going to deal with CMOs.
Yep.
So tell me, is there anything that I should start doing to make sure that we get our money's worth of you being here? Or is there anything I should not do anymore so that we get our money's worth from you?"
The biggest thing is the CEO needs to know their numbers and knows what services, what products make them the most money, what doesn't. It's because that hamstrings me as the marketer. Is right. I want to focus on generating revenue, but there's no point in generating revenue if there's a 5% margins versus 30% margins. Let's go where the money is. Let's go where there's less competition. Sometimes it means we go to in construction. Sometimes it means it's harder things. I have one client that they do exterior siding on buildings. They prefer things over 50 feet because they have equipment that gets them over 50 feet that their competitors don't do, and their competitors have to rent that equipment. So just that slight factor makes that project more profitable for them and less profitable for their competitors, and it's a huge advantage. So we go look for developers that have buildings over 5 stories. It's sometimes that easy. We don't really need to overcomplicate that, but it took having their VP of finance understand where they make money, where there's those little edges can be. But if they don't know that, we're all kind of shooting in the dark. Marketing's already a bit of a guessing game at times. Right. Educated guesses, but the more power we have in understanding what drives revenue, what drives good revenue. I think that's the other side is, I really want to focus on that ideal client profile. I want to talk to operations. What are the clients they like working with? What are the clients they hate working with? Because I think the worst thing marketing can do is bring clients to a company that is a bad fit, that doesn't make profit. And really the team hates working with them. That's actually one reason I got into construction. was started niching down 20 years ago, and a recommendation from going to a conference, and we started with what do we not like working in the firm. We didn't like working doctors and lawyers. It just wasn't a culture fit. We really like working construction. Already had 5 or 6 clients, and just kind of went, "Hey, is there an opportunity here?" And they're like, "Yeah, go for it." So, still here.
Right on. Okay, so then let's switch gears. New hypothetical. You're the keynote speaker. You're on stage. There's 250 people in the audience. They all came out of corporate. Every one of them became a fractional CMO yesterday.
Okay.
They're straight out of the gate. They don't even they don't know where the bathroom is in their own business. That's how new they are. Okay. So we're going to go over 3 things as parts of your speech. And the first part you're going to talk about is you're just going to say to them, guys, brand new, being fractional CMO.
Yeah.
I can tell you, you're going to be shocked by what?
tripling your revenue, your former income isn't enough to make money, because now you have to pay for your own benefits, your own taxes, your own overhead. So that's kind of a teaser. I've seen some of the companies that push people to do fractionals and buy their processes and their kits.
Really?
Oh, just make to these clients and you'll triple your revenue. I'm like, that's really not enough to survive. You're actually going backwards.
Right.
You always, because number two is you always have to be selling. One of the challenges as a fractional is you hit a capacity, 3 clients, 4 clients, 5 clients, whatever it is. It's one of the things we do at Alt CMOs. I'm not the only CMO. So if I'm busy and a good friend comes to me, it's like, hey, I really want to work with you, Perryn. I can either push them to a colleague that's, hey, Kevin, Ryan will take care of you, or I can maybe take one of my current clients and hand that over to someone else that better fit, and I can take the client on myself. Or just I've had a friend come in one time and was like, it was not health construction, but they trusted me. Like, this is financial, healthcare financial. I'm like, I don't know that, but we had a friend of the company took care of it for him, and it's good to have that. And I guess the third one is kind of leads into is have a network of other CMOs, especially if you're going to go niche, which I highly recommend. If you can niche down, it makes you being referred to easier. As soon as people think construction marketing, they generally in the space, they think of me because I'm one of the few that have this experience. I don't want, healthcare financial services clients or things like that. And it doesn't mean I'm super isolated. Actually, it's kind of interesting about construction. It's quite broad. There's 30 plus different trade contractors. There's the suppliers, equipment, then there's just your traditional general contractors. But one of the things I'm even seeing more recently, I've been working with a lot of construction tech firms because I understand the buyers so well. So I don't have the huge strength as a normal SaaS CMO, but I understand the buyers so well that SaaS people generally don't understand.
Yeah, I can wholeheartedly agree with that. Every year, this is my my 4th anniversary in my company was last December, and so I'm like, I'm in year 5 now, and every year the number of things that I do drops.
Yep,
it gets smaller and smaller, and you'll just like people will come to you and say, hey, can you work with this kind of company, or can you work with my kind of firm? And you just, I don't really do that. Here's someone else. I refer out a lot because I'm a copywriter, and the only thing that I do is I write for the first few moments up to the first few minutes of some prospect's attention, right? I don't write for people who are already interested in that company. I get hired to make people interested in that company. Right. And so like throwing away or pushing aside almost all of those types of writing that I could do but won't do, my revenue doubled last year.
That's awesome.
The more that I just keep like pushing down and focusing on just those first few moments of someone's attention, so usually in B2B prospects, then the more money I make. It's like everybody, in case this isn't clear from what Perryn has said and what I have to say, niche down. Right?
Yeah.
Because CMOs, fractional CMOs, Perryn, and you're not one of them, but most fractional CMOs, they will, honest to God, they will tell a client or prospective client in the first 5 minutes, guys, you got to like focus your message. We need clarity. It needs to be easy to understand what you do, right? We need to put guardrails around this thing. You need to niche down. And then they'll come to me because, usually most of my business comes via fractional CMOs saying, Dean, I got this client. But every once in a while, it's like, Dean, I need help positioning and stuff. And I will tell them the exact same thing. Okay, you need to niche down. We need clarity. And they'll say, well, I don't want to leave any money on the table, Dean. Or I do so many things, Dean. I say, you literally just gave my advice to your client like minutes ago, but you won't follow it yourself.
Oh, and it's complete opposite too. I can charge more than they can any day because I understand the industry. It's actually one of our things, we talk about. It's on the homepage of our website is stop training your marketing consultants about the construction industry. I don't need to know. I already know it. So it's a huge value, and it saves me a lot of time. So I actually can take on more clients because I'm not being constantly, treading water, just trying to understand the industry. And that was actually one of the impetuses of going niche 20 years ago was I was getting stretched thin by different clients.
Right.
And at one point, it was literally 3 different clients asked me on this, like, hey, I need you to go to this conference so you understand my industry better. It was all on the same day. I was like, I can't.
Yeah.
So just as I get into it, like I know 60% of what I need to know when I walk in the door because I've been doing it for so long.
Yeah. I saw this tweet last year, and it was sometimes you like come across a quote and you're like, okay, it's memorable. I don't know if that's true. And you return back to it throughout like the next year. You try to break it, right? It's not true. The tweet I saw was, and I have not been able to break it, is the more clearly you can explain what you do, the more you can charge.
Oh, 100%.
Right. And like, I can't break it. Like, I can't come up with an exception. It's so true that it really had an impact on me all of last year.
Yeah.
And obviously it worked out.
Well,
Okay.
and I want to go back to your example. I think it's really interesting is most people, when they think niche, they think industry. Like, I'm focused on construction, but you're focused on more of a skill set,
Yes.
and you can actually work with other copywriters that might be great at ghostwriting books. But that's not your niche. You're going to help them write the opening page for that book, maybe, or the back cover. And that's
you got it.
So I think that's a huge issue. There's some companies out there, all they do is homepage verbiage. That's it. So that's a huge part, especially if you're an e-com business, things like that. And there's one I highly considered using, and they charge $15,000 just to rewrite the homepage. And I'm like, huh? But they have the backing, they can prove it, and they do it all the time.
Yeah. I'm going to need the name of that company later. Okay. Okay. So the next question, you're still on stage, is guys, I got to tell you, speaking as a fractional CMO, many clients and many of your clients just don't understand what?
Marketing. Just in general, just they think marketing is anything from, promo items, keeping that closet full, to events, the social media. I had an engineering client years ago. He's like, I'm trying to hire a marketing person. I just don't want her spending all day on social media. I'm like, the company's been around for 75 years. And social media's been around for 10? So what would your marketing person do any of those other years? There's all these other things. And marketing is just so wide. It's kind of, we've become the catch-all. We're essentially, we're not HR, we're not finance, we're not IT, but we work with all of them. And, we become really much that. And because some of it is, especially in the construction industry, a lot of marketers actually started in the admin role. So they're still treated as that admin role instead of treated as overhead. And some of them have been able to break through and really hone their craft and learn. And but also the other issue we have in the construction is so many of them started as proposals. Marketing is proposals to them. And I worked with a big company a couple years ago as a consultant before I went fractional. And I was talking to others. This is 700-person company, 1.3 billion in revenue. And they had this 4-person marketing team. And I'm hearing from all the VPs and executives, like, we just don't get really marketing out of them. Because you don't have a 4-person marketing, you have a 4-person proposal team.
Right.
You have no marketers in-house. So we had to recraft what that means and really define it. We actually moved the proposal team to go underneath the new sales manager role, because it was really a sales function more than a marketing. And they actually have to work together. But that's one of the biggest things is just, and I think that's one of the challenges CMOs have is especially if you're the first, sometimes if you're a placeholder, somebody's out on maternity leave or they're transitioning, they want to have that temp CMO, there's definitely a role for that. But a lot of times I'm the first CMO. Sometimes I'm the first and only marketing hire this company's ever had. So you really have to help define to them what is marketing. I even had a large company who has in-house marketing. They just went through a leadership change. Second generation retired, third generation's taken over, and they sent an email at Friday at 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night. I'm like, I knew this was happening. I didn't know it was happening today. Why did you not tell me? He's like, well, I didn't think that was your worry. And everyone knew it was coming. I'm like, we could have crafted the message better and had better timing and made a better impact if we would have just had an hour conversation about this. But he just really is like, I've never had a marketer do that. I'm like, all right, well, next time when you decided to retire, I need to be involved.
So, okay, final question then. You're still on stage, but some intern is trying to signal you to get off, and the music's coming up. And you say, guys, they're making me leave, but I got to tell you, I want to leave you with one thing as I walk off of here. The one piece of advice I would give you, or one tip I'd give you about getting clients is what?
Oh,
they're brand new. It's day 2 of being practice.
I got to do 2. Define your ideal client profile. And that's something, Maya, the principal, and I are really focused on is, we've looked at all the clients that kind of gone south or things that didn't go well, or were really nitpicking price and invoices, and just keep tweaking that ideal client profile, making it tighter, just as you talked about yours, your services. Yeah. And the other thing is just constantly be networking, and not necessarily with other CMOs. I think that's the comfort group is, let's go to another marketing group. No, I like to network with construction fractional CFOs or fractional COOs or people that are specialized in construction, but that can help open the door for me. But also have a client that's like, hey, I know you're big in your network and stuff. I need this. And it's like, okay. Like I've literally introduced one of my clients to 5 people in my network in the last 3 months. And it's a huge value to the point where like, I think I'm actually providing more value for my network than I am my marketing strategy right now, which says a lot. So,
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, the speech is over. And now let's talk about talking to prospective clients.
yeah.
So hypothetical number 3. You talk to a lot of prospective clients. So you're talking to a lot of companies, therefore, a lot of people who, think they know a bit about marketing. Thing about marketing is there's always like a new shiny thing, right? What,
Yes.
as you talk to prospects and they're talking to you about topic A or topic B, what are they overrating and what do they underrate? What is something that you think is just like criminally underrated that your prospective clients never seem to bring up, but boy, it would be like super smart if they focus something on it?
Brand positioning
Is
is the
over or under?
most underrated piece. If you get it right, it feels wrong. Like one of the quotes I heard, you're talking about quotes earlier, is good marketing feels invisible and it doesn't feel like marketing. Bad
Feels like the
marketing
company.
feels like marketing. Yeah, it is. You walk into a store, you walk into a company, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this just feels right. Like I get it. Everyone's on the same page. Everyone knows what's going on. It's this cult, and they always assume, oh, that's the culture of the company. No, that's marketing. That's the right brand positioning. And good brand positioning just is like, it makes everything easier, from getting clients to getting employees, just keeping employees, and really understanding that. And one of the things I've warned companies over the years is when I do rebrands, is like, once we define who your brand really is, you're gonna have some good employees quit.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, they're not gonna fit the mold. And that's okay, because you're gonna replace them with people that are even better, that fit the mold that you're trying to fit. And they're the whole company, the whole team will raise up. So it's in it every time. It sometimes takes a week, sometimes takes a year. One of the best employees leaves, and the point where I get a call from the CEO or whoever I'm working with, like, so and so just quit. I'm like, I told you that was going to happen. Like,
Yep.
It's because you're identifying, especially when you first identify your core values. Like I had an IT firm years ago I worked with, and one of their core values was, we're going to stay above them. We're going to stay late and get the job done. Well, one of their best employees was a single mom that had to get home at 5 o'clock to take relief the babysitter. Period. She couldn't stay late. And that was something that they were pushing out. And it was an operational issue that was essentially band-aided in the past. And that became a core value. She's like, I can't. So she left. And then as her kid got a little older, she came back because she now fit to the mold. And it was a great fit.
All right. Then this next question is either the easiest or hardest of all the questions, which is, hey, Perryn, what's marketing?
It's everything in a sense. Usually trying to find the brand. Brand is not the logo. It is everything that represents your company. It's essentially, marketing is kind of all those communications that you're having with your audience, and what your company stands for.
Okay, good answer. All right, and then as you're talking, this is the last of the 3 for this scenario. As you're talking to prospective companies, right? And they're trying to decide if you're a fit for them, and you're trying to decide if they're a fit for you. What's like a red flag and what's a green flag when you're talking to a prospect?
The red flag is when they're desperate. They're just treading water. They don't know what makes them money. I'd worked with a demolition and dumpster company that they were kept pushing, like, we need to push more dumpsters. We got dumpsters in the yard. We need to push dumpsters. And finally, like, how much money do you make on dumpsters? And it essentially would break even if we had a good acquisition cost.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, why are we pushing dumpsters? Sell the dumpsters. And I'm literally like, the prospect's like, wait, you're telling me as a marketer, instead of marketing my dumpsters, you want me to sell the dumpsters? I'm like, yeah, sell them for scrap metal. They're a waste of your time and energy. And that was obviously not what they wanted to hear. No, because they wanted to have someone help them sell dumpsters, but it was going to be a loss leader. And that was another thing, is if that's going to loss leader and essentially be your outdoor advertising, we can make that work. But we have to go into that with, that's the business model.
Right.
But that's not. And I think, the biggest green flag is somebody who will take that kind of conversation and understand that I'm trying to help. And I'm more of a business partner, not just an order taker. I never liked being an order taker. I don't like hiring order takers. So the green flag I love is when a CEO or CFO, will come to me and it's like, look, we know how to run our company. We don't know how to grow it. That's why we're bringing you in.
That's
Tell us what to do. We'll clear the path. We'll make it happen. And I've obviously got to come in with logic and some rationale and some, I'm not just saying, hey, let's go do a Super Bowl ad. That makes no sense in my industry. But, say this is what's worked. This is what I think will work here. This is where we're going. And also tell them we're going to miss some. I think that's the other thing is allowing people to miss. I'll give you a couple of quick examples on that.
Mm-hmm.
One of my clients worked at in-house. Actually, I was jokingly called the internal fractional CMO. I was managing 3 companies and 8 brands. One of the companies we acquired was a robotics company. So we were trying to have fun. They were very much a generalist firm. One of the things that hit like a freaking rocket ship was I made a blog page called Robot Jokes. And it has 200 robot jokes. So if you Google robot jokes, they come up first. And it was their way to just kind of really somewhat spam the system because now robots all over the page. It's very organic. But we actually can attribute revenue from that blog post through using lead forensics. We could see people started on that page and they go visit another page and they come back a few weeks later and they go to a couple more pages, and then I could tag them into certain deals we had in HubSpot. So it actually made us money. This kind of silly thing that I was just trying to do to drive up some search rankings, which actually didn't drive any search rankings, which is the goal. But on the flip side, we did this big robot March Madness thing. Like during the Final Four, that whole time we did this 64 robot bracket challenge and had people vote which robots would win and their fan favorite, and trying to make sure it was not a battle of the robots. It was what the fan favorites were. It was tough to get any traction. I was texting friends, pushing this on my socials, having the teams do this, and we got no traction. We probably spent at least 100 hours developing that campaign. And it just went nowhere. R2D2 won, by the way. He's the fan favorite, if anyone's curious. It's very natural. But when it came up to hey, should we do this again next year? I'm like, no. Even though 90% of the work was done, we just kind of had to reorder. So I'm like, it just didn't take off. So we canned it the next year. So there's some misses and there's some stuff that does work really well. I mean, I could probably attribute easily, quarter to $500,000 of revenue just from robot jokes.
When you talked about the red flags and clients being desperate or not understanding, how they actually make money, it reminded me of a quote from an investing book from a long time, 20 plus years ago. And the guy had a great quote when it came to understanding buying stocks and risk and stuff. He says, if you don't know what kind of person you are, investing in the stock market is an expensive way to learn.
Yes. Yeah. I had a CEO tell me one time, he goes, I made the $1 million mistake of buying a certain company, and I know what not to do when acquiring companies now.
Yeah.
Well, luckily it was only $1 million. So
yeah. And recoverable. Okay. So do you have a question that you'd want to put out to the world of fractional CMOs? Or do you have a question for me? Either one. And you don't have to answer this one.
Yeah.
And then we can move on to the next one. But I like to give people a chance just in case.
Yeah, I was planning to ask if we had the other CMO, what are their red flags? So I think that's a very interesting question. Of just it's also interesting is one company's red flags is not another,
right?
And I think that's what's very interesting. You can read all these lists of red flags for prospects and all, and I was like, no, that's actually I like that. That's a green flag for me. The same. If you're dating people, a green flag and a red flag it can be the same thing for different people. So, no, you and I had some chatter when we did our pre-call and stuff, just kind of how you built your system and all. And I think is very interesting. And I think CMOs should actually look at what you've done and just how are using something that's very authentic and helping educate people with your podcast is driving still revenue to you. That's why you're doing it.
It's driving a lot of revenue.
You're not hiding it. Yeah. But and I think that's a great way to do as CMOs is just how do we add value and education to our audience? Because we can only ask people to buy me so many times. And I hate buying messages, and it doesn't work in my industry at all. And so the more we can do is educate and build those relationships that way, I think is great. I think you're a great example of that. So
I can tell you that from the podcast point of view, and the idea from the beginning, in case anyone ever decides to design a podcast, is to not care at all about the total size of the audience. and whether you're going to grow it. Right? I am not the personality that's driving this. Start with the audience, the ultimate audience, which is companies who are looking at hiring a fractional CMO and what kind of things they would want to know. And then I work backwards to the fractional CMOs. And then I work backwards to me and not the other way around. And it worked great. Last year, I just said as an example. So this is year 5. So we finished year 4 at the end of December of last year. So it's basically a January to February, December. I actually started it, right? And so at the end of the year. And so there's been a total of $6 billion companies that have become my clients in the past 4 years. Awesome. The first $1 billion company was through like networking and like personal experience and knowing those people. And that was year 1. Then there was nothing. And then I start the podcast. And the other $5 billion companies that are clients now all came last year, including Accenture, like really big companies. And, and it all came basically because of the podcast and talking to it. So yeah, absolutely. Like figure out how to give to that group and figure out how to help that group give to that group. And then you work on the very back end of that and help everybody down, and you'd be amazed what you can get.
Oh, and I think not focusing on the vanity metrics aside, a client we were talking just yesterday about, do we start a podcast with them? Because they're actually talking about doing in-person events. And one of the questions, okay, if we only have 10 people show up to these monthly talks that we're talking about doing, how do we scale it? How do we, like, well, one, we can just kind of repurpose the topics and stuff you can have. That'd be blogs, LinkedIn posts, and potentially even a podcast. I said, we can even potentially record this, but we need to, what is the focus? Is the focus the in-person talk? Or is the focus the podcast? Because either we go in and make an in-person talk and we potentially put lapel mics on you and just record the information, but we still have to kind of re-record it probably later. Or do we make this like the football coach radio show, and it's the call-in show, and there happens to be an audience in the room. It could be like that as well. We have to kind of figure out which route we want to have. But like, we'll figure a way to repurpose that content either way. And they were like, well, what's an audience we're gonna have? I'm like, guys, if you're doing 50 downloads, you're in the top 25% of podcasts.
Yeah.
It's not, we don't need to be huge. There's definitely huge podcasts are getting tens of thousands of downloads every week, but most of them aren't.
No, it's a fraction of a percent. Right? Also, most podcasts don't make it past, I think, like 10 episodes.
Yeah.
And by the way, welcome to episode 167.
John Tierman just did a study on 300 professional services podcasts. That was really good. And he evaluated, how many episodes, how long they've been running, things like that. And he definitely saw a drop off essentially around that 50 episode and or 1 year mark. Yeah.
Yeah. Not surprised. Okay. So these days, who should be reaching out to you and how should they reach out to you?
People visit the website, thealtcmo.net, or just find me on LinkedIn. I'm heavily active on LinkedIn, trying to share what I know and just engage with people in the industry. But yeah, I'm looking for construction executives or early marketers in the construction space that are looking for mentorship. But essentially, I like to help companies get to that next level of growth. They figured out how to make money, but now it's on how do we scale that.
All right. Sounds good. Perryn, thanks for coming back. Hopefully you're now in a group of only about 20 something people out of nearly 200 that have been on the podcast twice. And if you come back a third time, you'll be one of only like 4 or 5 people so far.
Cool.
So there you go. We had someone today who was her third time.
Oh, I'm gonna have to work to that SNL jacket.
Yeah, exactly. Right. 5 times and you get into the executive VIP lounge in the back, and everyone has especially All right, man. Thanks very much. I really appreciate this. Great questions, great answers. This is awesome.
I love the conversation.
All right. See you, man.